What's up, everybody? Taylor Nixon here. Takeaways with Tay is back for another Sunday broadcast, and yeah, we're gonna dive into it. It's been an eventful week. Let's just say that it's been a very eventful week. Um, a lot going on, guys. A lot going on as usual, just like in the world of affairs in this life. um, Hope everybody is doing well out there. Our book topic for today is going to be a little different. So, we've touched on philosophy, we touched on relationships, and this week in particular, I wanted to touch on personal finances. I haven't talked about finances since the last book that I read, which was it Better Capitalism, or was it not Better Capitalism? Better Economics, and very great insights were taken from that book from reading it. So it was very educational, especially for a lot of us who don't normally read education, or not educational, but financial books, financial topics, or anything like that. So this week is another book related to finances, which it's called "Manage Your Money Like a Grown Up." So I'm gonna restrain from actually cussing because I don't want YouTube or Instagram to flag me. So, but yeah, it's by Sam Beckbessinger, and she is a best-selling author as well as a famous financial expert. So she's gonna be, or as I was reading her book, I got a lot of great takeaways as far as financial guidelines and concepts to grasp to help, not only myself, but other people who might be listening in their financial journey, So, like, however their personal finances look like, whatever goals you might have financially for yourself, this book definitely helps. So, once again, it's called Manage Your Money Like a Grown Up, and it's by Sam Beckbessinger. And yeah, I think it's a very important topic. It's a very important topic for many reasons. One of them being we all have money. We all, or at least we should. If you're an adult, you're over, let's say, 20 years old. 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, you have some type of source of income coming in. And when you have that income coming in, you also have expenses going out. And so, if you're an average adult, you probably have, rent, car, food, just your day-to-day expenses that you have to keep up with. So money management is a topic that is very important, and some of us, are taught how to manage our money, and some of us are not. So for those of us who are not, that's why we seek out, or we should seek out different people and resources so that we can learn how to manage our money better. Um, so, without further ado, first takeaway here is quit thinking like everyone else. And that, as I was reading the book, right, Sam, she basically talks about how most people are consumers, right? And how we might want something, like we might want a certain type of car, a certain type of shoes, clothes, etc., based upon how we feel, like what type of status it'll give us in the world. And also it's nice, like who doesn't want nice things, right? You go out into the world and somebody might see you driving like a Range Rover or a Cadillac or whatever, and then you automatically are perceived as this person of like great financial wealth, whatever you want to call it. And she is basically saying, quit thinking like everyone else. That's how everyone else thinks. Everyone else thinks that having material possessions puts your, I guess you could say, your status in this world on a pedestal. And that's not the way to true wealth. So like wealthy people, I hear this a lot, but wealthy people don't really flaunt their wealth. They have their money working for them. They have their money doing things for them. They're not walking around with the flashiest belt, shoes, clothes, car, etc. Their car is most likely paid off, and they don't really believe in, let's say, bad debt. Um, and so that's basically what she's saying, is that you kind of have to, in order to get into a financial to reach a financial goal that you might have for yourself, you have to switch your mind state, and you have to go from thinking like everyone else to having a clear cut goal, and then doing what you need to do to enact that and to reach that goal. So that leads to my next point. Buying things that we don't need. A lot of the buying decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis is emotional. Like, a lot of the advertisements, marketing campaigns, they play into our emotions as human beings. Us wanting to fit in, us wanting to be perceived a certain type of way, us wanting to be a part of something. That's what a lot of these marketing campaigns and advertising campaigns play into. And that's a whole nother topic for another day. But essentially, if you can't afford something, if you can't afford to do it twice, that's what I've been taught. If you can't afford to do something twice or pay for something twice, you can't afford it. And so, although you might miss out, or you might not be able to get, let's say everyone's going to dinner and you can't afford the dinner, or it's not in your budget, you have to be able to have that restraint. In order to reach your financial goal, you have to have that restraint so that you can say, you know what, I have food at home, and eat the food at home. When you buy the food, actually eat it, actually stick to it. And that's a part of, just understanding, buying what you need and not what you don't need. Also, we have to get our priorities straight. So when it comes to our money, the whole title plays into like being a grown up about your personal finances. And part of that is knowing, as it say, being a grown up about your money starts with figuring out what is important to you and then spending in alignment with that. So that was key to me, because it's like we often just buy without any real, let's say, intention. It's just, we just want it, and we're not sticking to a budget. We're just buying. Or not, I don't want to say us, but the average person, right? And when you are mature, when you are grown up about your finances, you understand that you can't buy everything that you see. And you can't just because you want something, just because you might want to go on a vacation, you might want to go to Disney World, you know that there's other priorities, right? So you might be trying to save up for your best friend's 30th, 40th birthday, whatever the case may be. Or there might be a medical expense that you're trying to take care of. You might be planning something. So like, whatever your goal is, you want to make sure that you're spending in alignment with that so that you can reach that goal. Otherwise, you'll never reach the goal, or it'll take you longer to reach the goal because you aren't as disciplined as you should be to reach that goal. Second takeaway is that no one can earn their way into financial freedom. So this is a point that I think is really important, because everyone has some type of source of income, but the way that I like interpret it is that you can only receive money for how many hours you're able to work. So let's say you're able to work 40 hours a week. You make 20, 25, whatever the case may be, an hour. Once you can't work more than that 40 hours a week, your money stops. So basically, the level of wealth that you're able to acquire stops with it ends with however many hours you're able to work. And so when it says that no one can earn their way into financial freedom, it's basically saying that you can't just work a 9-to-5 and have true financial freedom. You might be like stable, you might be able to pay off whatever bills and everything. Like you might very well be able to live comfortably, whatever the case may be. But financial freedom in the space of like having emergency, having let's say a medical bill comes up and an unexpected bill, being able to pay that without having to worry about having to make ends meet, figure something out. Like true financial freedom, you're not worried. Like money is not something could happen and you're prepared for it. Like that's what I see as true financial freedom. And most people who work 9-to-5s, or most of us who work and receive income, we're not prepared for the average medical expense, emergency expense. We're not prepared for let's say retirement. Retirement is not as like it used to be. Like, these are things that in order to have true financial freedom, you have to be able to depend upon your money, when, let's say, something that you're not expecting happens. Um and so a lot of the book kind of, she talks about wage slaves, and she describes them as people who basically, let's say you earn $100,000 a year, but you spend $100,000 a year. So because you're spending what you're earning, you're staying, your net worth essentially is at a standstill. You're not going up, you're not going down. And so you become this wage slave your entire life, because that's literally your means of survival, is that, in order for you to survive and to keep up with the lifestyle that you have to make a certain amount of money so that you can then spend it. And no one, I don't think anybody wants to work their whole life. Like, I think everybody, at least I would assume that everybody wants to get to a point in their life where their money is working for them. They're able to use their time to live, be a human being, spend time with their family without having to worry about making money so that they can make things meet and sustain themselves in this life. Another thing too to think about and to consider is inflation. So if anyone is paying attention to what's going on right now in our current economy, inflation has been a thing of concern. And for anyone who doesn't know what inflation means, it basically means that the the ability of your dollar, or your dollar's ability, buying power, decreases over time because the prices of good go up. So it's like having, let's say you have $10, and at the time that you have $10, a piece of candy is worth $1. So you're able to get 10 pieces of candy with those $10. But when inflation increases, let's say inflation increases, I don't know, a percent or two. Now that same $10, the price of the candies is now $1 and, let's say, 20 cents, or $1.30. So now you can only get 8 with the whole $10, where before you used to be able to get 10 things of candy. Now you can only get 8 pieces of candy. And so that's pretty much what inflation is. And why inflation is so important is because as long as you're living, the likelihood of inflation increasing is higher than it decreasing. So if you look back just through the times, and you're, like I say, you're paying attention to what inflation was, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, and then versus a decade or so ago, you'll notice that inflation has continued to increase over time. So that means that the buying power of your dollar, US dollar, has decreased. So essentially now you have to work more so that you can maintain, just let's say your living situation doesn't change. You still have the same expenses, etc., but now you have to work more to maintain those expenses because inflation has risen. So it's important, to have a path or some type of solution to outpace inflation. So, like, let's say, for example, if inflation is 3%, you want to make sure that you're investing at a rate where your return is at least 3% or more, so that you are outpacing inflation. And that's a whole investment strategy that, it can get a little bit more intricate than that. But that's like the basics of, being able to prepare yourself for things like inflation, because they're inevitable. Also, the current inflation rate is 3% in the United States. And just to compare that to previous rates, prices are still 20.8% more expensive than they were when the pandemic-induced recession began in February 2020. So literally 4 years ago, right now, things are let me go back to that number, 20.8% more expensive than they were 4 years ago. That's crazy. Like, that's absolutely crazy. And you can look at the inflation rate of a lot of different things. So, there's consumer goods, there's oil, the price of oil, food, etc., goods and services. So, all these different rates matter, and it's not like, I don't want to say that there's like one inflation rate for all the things that we buy. There's inflation rates for food, like I said, oil, gas, consumer goods, services, things like that. So yeah, it gets pretty, you can have at it if you want to take a look. But which leads me to my next point, which is that's why, sometimes people are taught to like save money, just put your money in a bank and let it sit. Now, the thing about that is, if you're letting your money sit in a bank, the bank is going to take that money. That's the whole business model of the bank, is to take the money and invest it. So if you're not going to invest the money, the bank is. Why would you? And then let me say this: they're going to invest your money, and you're not going to get anything in return for that. You're not getting a percentage. You're not getting interest. You're not getting any. It depends on the account that you have your money in. But most people who put their money in a savings account, just a regular savings account, the bank is taking that money and investing it, and you're not getting anything. So instead of doing that, the book suggests that the way we save is by investing it. And there's different types of investments. It depends on your risk tolerance. Like when you're talking about investing and like what you want to invest in, you have to first know what your risk tolerance is. If you have a low risk tolerance, if you have a high risk tolerance, what your goal is. Are you trying to just simply outpace inflation? Are you trying to prepare for retirement? Are you trying to buy a home? What is your financial goal? And then that's when you decide what investments you're willing to invest in. But essentially, like if you're not going to invest your money, somebody else is. And if you do the method of saving the money underneath a mattress, like I said, you still have the problem of inflation, because that them same $10, $20, whatever you put underneath the mattress is going to continue to decrease in value because of inflation. So essentially, you want your money to work for you. That's what investing is called. And money is a tool. We have to see money as a tool and not just something that we get and we spend, and that's that. There was a very good quote from Warren Buffett, which for anyone who's familiar with Warren Buffett, he's a very famous investor, big time investor, arguably probably one of the greatest investors of our time. And he's like one of the richest people in the world, right? He's amassed all this wealth from investing in the stock market. And there's a quote in the book that says that by him, he says, people who don't learn to make their money work for them will work until they die. And I think I don't work until you die. I would say it's true if you're not necessarily like if your money is if you're not in with an employer that also is investing your money into like some 401k or a retirement plan. Like if you're just with somebody and you're just working on a day-to-day basis and you're not getting any type of benefits, no type of 401k, no type of retirement, no nothing, then yeah, you're going to be working until you die, literally, because you don't have anything saved or set aside for the time when, let's say, you can't work 24/7. But that's what a lot of these things are. That's what these 401k plans, retirement plans, that's what they are. Is your employer is making your money work for you, because they understand that having retirement funds and all that, you can get that money quicker by investing it, and having the right people invest it, and making the right decisions and all those things, then you could just like saving a portion of your paycheck. If you have if you do a certain percentage of your money each month and you put it into a 401k plan, or you put it, let's say you set it aside, but it's not doing anything because you're not investing it into anything that can actually grow. But if you're putting it into like a 401k or retirement, they're taking the money and they're investing it, and that's how it's growing the way that it's growing. And there's all different types of ways that you can invest. Life insurance policies. I personally have an HSA account, high yield savings account, and HSA is a health savings account. Real estate, etc. Like you can do so many different things with your money to basically make it work for you and to be an asset to you and not a liability. And the last takeaway from this book is that we build wealth with smart habits. So, biggest thing here is discipline. Having the discipline to be able to take inventory of your finances, of your personal finances, of your and the book talks about, balance sheets and let me see where it's at. Balance sheets and cash flow. And your balance sheet is basically, your assets versus your liability. So assets meaning, what do you own? What are properties that are bringing you money? And then your liabilities are, what are your debts? What do you still have to pay out? What are you liable for paying, every month? Cash flow is basically income versus your expenses. So, what are you, and that's, determined, you can say on a monthly basis, what are you getting on a monthly basis? What are your expenses on a monthly basis? And I really liked how the author says to take your, once you, let's assume that your cash flow is positive at the end of the month when you have paid all your expenses. Instead of taking that money and spending it, right? You take the money and you bring it over into your balance sheet, and then you help pay, you put it towards paying off debt, either A, paying off debt, especially high interest debt, or B, you put it towards buying assets, towards buying more assets to give you more money. So the way that the author sees saving is really putting your money, investing it. Like she doesn't see saving as like you're just putting it into an account and just letting it sit there. She sees it as like you're putting it into an account, but also whatever account that is, and let's say it's a stock or whatever, depending on how that stock does in the market, you are getting you're not only keeping your money, but then you're also receiving more money depending on the performance of the stock. And now, stocks get a little tricky. You have to really know what you're doing, and you have to really know the business that you're investing in. And that's the educational piece that comes into investing that a lot of people, I think, it kind of scares them from investing. But that just plays more into the discipline part, is having the discipline to learn things that you maybe don't know so that you can be able to take advantage of, the practices and things that you need to do so that you can acquire the wealth that you want to have. And so that's why I feel like, being broke, especially with all the information that we have access to, personally, I think that it's a choice. There are circumstances and there's situations that, yes, they're unfortunate and that you might find yourself in, right? Especially like if you have like a medical expense that comes up that you're not anticipating. But when you're talking about, living lifestyles that you can't necessarily afford, buying things that you can't afford, going on vacations that you probably shouldn't be going on as frequent, like those things, like a lot of people make these decisions and then they find themselves in situations of debt or, brokenness, if you will. And that, in my opinion, is a decision. That's what I mean when I say being broke is a choice. So yeah, you have to have discipline. You have to have some type of system or record of keeping track of, what is your income? What is your expenses? What are your assets? What are your liabilities? And in that way you can determine your net worth. And, as long as you can't change anything until you first have an awareness of where it's at. So once you know, okay, my net worth is negative $20,000, now okay, this is what I have to do to start chipping away so that I can have a positive net worth, And then on top of that, you can start to see, like when you know where you started, negative 20,000, and then you gradually chipping away at it. Now you're at negative 10,000, negative 5,000. Next thing you know, you're positive. It's because you enacted discipline so that you could carry out what you needed to do so that you could reach the financial goal that you're looking to accomplish. And it takes time. Another thing about discipline is when we're talking about finances and things like that, it takes time. We have to give ourselves time. We have to have a plan. We have to have, grace with ourselves because things do come up. There's a lot that comes up within the span of a year that are out of our control. And so, that's a part of having discipline, is just having a plan. Things happen, but also being able to be flexible and adjust and things like that. So yeah, Sam talks about the way you save. So, assets, liquidity, being able to take that money out when you need it, not just locked up in an account somewhere and you can't get to it. Liquidity is important. So how you save is with your assets. How you grow money, which is super important. Compound interest. Compound interest. How to protect your investments, diversification. So let's dive into those a little bit more. Basic formula for, let's say, positive cash flow: spend less than you earn. That's that's like as simple as it gets. Spend less than you earn. And then, like I said, whatever is left, don't spend it immediately, and figure out what's right for you, what percentage of whatever you want to take and spend it towards savings or leisure, etc. Because you do want to take your money and actually spend it on you, especially if you worked hard. But you don't want to spend all of it. You want to also have your money working for you, because if you don't, somebody else will, and you're just gonna continue to be in that rabbit race of wage slave is what she calls it. But okay, compound interest. Compound interest is, if you ever heard of the story of how would you rather take $1 million versus a penny, but the penny doubles in value every day for 30 days. Most people, when they hear it, it's a penny versus $1 million. Most people are going to choose the $1 million. But actually, after 30 days, the penny is actually more valuable because it's doubling. Because it's doubling in value every day, the penny is going to actually be worth $5.3 million at the end of 30 days. So you're talking about 1 million versus 5.3 million just from starting as a penny. That's the power of compound interest. And that's what the author says is how you grow your money. And so the way, let me go to this, pretty much basically compound interest is all about your initial capital. So, how much money you initially put in, the term. So how long you can let the money grow without touching it. That's very important. You can't touch it. Otherwise, the compounding effect, it won't have that compounding effect if you touch it, if you take money out. Also, the rate. So how fast it grows. And then compounding period, which is how often the growth occurs. So you have to take all these things into consideration in order to really figure out, okay, how can I have compound interest work in my favor? What is my goal? What am I trying to achieve? What is my compounding period? What's my rate? What's the length of my term? And then you can really start to figure out, okay, I need to put this much in it today. I need to put this much in my account tomorrow. I need to put this much in it, and then just stick to that. And then you let the magic of the compounding interest work for you. And the next thing you know, 30 days was a smaller scale example, but next thing you know, 10 years, 20 years, especially the younger you start, the better. But 20 years can have an astounding effect on your overall wealth, right? And then lastly, diversification is just important because you never should put all your eggs in one basket. So when you are investing, let's say you put all of your hard-earned money that you have left over at the end of the month into one account, and then let's say that one account, something happens and things go bad. Let's say it's a stock and the business, like CrowdStrike this past week, if you guys are paying attention to CrowdStrike and what just happened with the global tech outage, CrowdStrike's stock just went down like incredibly, right? So if you're invested in that, you took a loss. I can't remember what percent it went down by, and I'm not like a stock analysis or any analyst or anything like that. So, but basically that's an example of if you had all of your eggs in one basket. So if you were only investing in CrowdStrike, you would have taken a loss. Now, if you were invested in CrowdStrike, Nvidia, Apple, Tesla, etc., Apple, Nvidia, Tesla, and the rest of them didn't receive that hit that CrowdStrike just hit because of that outage that happened, that global outage. So that's pretty much what diversification means, is not having all your eggs in one basket. Because if you do have all your eggs in one basket and something like what happened to CrowdStrike happens, and let's say you have all your money in CrowdStrike, then now you lose, and all the money that you put into that particular stock is also, you're taking a loss. Um, and then very last thing, so the author gives a method for getting rid of debt quicker. It's called the avalanche method, and it's 3 steps. The first step is create a list of all your debts. Put your highest debt, the highest interest rate. So whatever your debt is that has the highest interest rate, you want to put that at the top, and then the lowest at the bottom. And then the second step, you want to pay off the high interest debt first, because it has that such a high interest rate. You want to pay that off first, and then you take that same amount that you've been, once you've paid that off, you take the same amount that you've been paying towards that high interest debt, and you pay that towards the next piece of debt that you have, and you just keep doing that until you're essentially debt free. And that's basically what the author calls the avalanche method, which is a way to get rid of a lot of debt quick. And then essentially I think it's just, a lot of this is just like having a plan, knowing what works for you, knowing what your current state of finances are, and then doing what works for you, knowing where you want to be, what your financial goal is. I think all of us have different, goals for what we're trying to achieve, but making sure that whatever you're trying to achieve and whatever you have at your hand, you're making it work for you. And that's a part of being an adult and growing up and taking charge of your finances, taking charge of your personal finances, not blaming anyone, not blaming the stars and saying, well, if you had this type of experience or if you had this person that was supporting you. No, like, put your finances in your hands, because that's where they should be, unless you're just physically incapable, or there's some type of disability or something that's hindering you from gaining income. But take charge of your finances, be an adult about it, be a grown up about it, and start to really envision where you want to go, what your financial goal is, and where you want to be in life, what wealth looks like for you, because it looks like something different for everybody. Everybody doesn't aspire to be a millionaire, and everybody don't aspire to be a billionaire, and that's okay. There's no limit to what you can attain and what you can't. It really just depends on what do you want, and how do you make what you have, or how do you make your current situation fit that? What sacrifices do you need to make? What type of discipline do you need to, or what type of habits do you need to establish? What type of character do you need to become? And then you make it happen. So this has been another episode by yours truly, Taylor Nixon, with Takeaways with Tay. Once again, the name of the book is called, let me go back, Manage Your Money Like a Grown Up. It's by Sam Beckbessinger. And yeah, I will see you guys another lovely Sunday. Next Sunday, same time, same place. Takeaways with Tay. Y'all be